Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into something that is just absolutely fascinating. We're going to look at the literal architecture of intelligence and uncover some genuinely surprising research on how we can actively upgrade our own brains.
So I want you to basically reconsider everything you've ever been taught about intelligence. For decades, right? We've been fed this idea that your IQ is totally fixed, that it's just this unchangeable genetic trait, a hand of cards you're dealt at birth, and you're simply stuck with it. At 18, 25, 50, it never changes. But what if that completely misses the truth? Because what's really wild is the stark contrast between who these historical giants became and how they actually started out. Take Albert Einstein. He was considered slow as a child. His teachers literally thought he lacked intelligence. Charles Darwin was an average student who actively hated memorization. Thomas Edison was even expelled from school and labeled unteachable. Yet, these three individuals completely reshaped how humanity thinks. So what changed? Well, it wasn't their genetics, and it certainly wasn't their formal schooling. The crucial point here is that their daily habits changed how their brains worked. They completely shattered the fixed IQ myth. Okay, so let's dive right into the exact roadmap we'll be exploring today. Here are the 6 specific, science-backed habits that history's greatest minds used to systematically build their intellect. Deep thinking without input, productive struggle, writing to think, building mental models, deliberate memory training, and cognitive recovery. All right, habit 1, thinking without input, or the power of disconnecting. This first one completely challenges a massive assumption we all have today, that to get smarter, we literally need to constantly consume more videos and podcasts. But the research actually shows that when you step away from all that input, you force your brain to grow stronger. By disconnecting, you fire up what neuroscientists call the default mode network. This is the brain system responsible for abstract thinking, deep insight, long-term reasoning, and true creativity. And the catch? It only fully activates when you're thinking without any external input. And Einstein is just a brilliant example of this in action. He didn't just sit there running math calculations all day long. He imagined. He asked things like, what happens if I chase a beam of light? What happens if gravity bends space? He would walk alone for hours with no books, no notes, just pure thinking. He literally walked his way into genius through undistracted, solitary thought experiments. So what's the practical takeaway for us? Your first smart habit is to take a daily thinking walk with absolutely zero inputs. No phone, no music. Now, fair warning, at first it's going to feel a bit boring and then maybe even a little uncomfortable. But lean into it, because that discomfort, that is the exact feeling of your intelligence actively growing. Moving on to habit 2, struggle before help, or delaying instant answers. Have you ever noticed how highly intelligent people operate when they hit a wall? They don't instantly rush to Google it. Psychologists have a specific term for this, productive struggle. It's the psychological mechanism where the brain strengthens its deep neural pathways simply by trying, failing, adjusting, and retrying. I really want to emphasize this. Struggling to find an answer is not a sign of low intelligence, it's the very mechanism that builds it. Instant solutions might feel super productive in the moment, but they vanish from your memory just as fast. Let's actually look at Benjamin Franklin's exact 4-step method for this. He'd read an essay, put it completely away out of sight, and then try to rewrite the whole thing purely from memory. Only after putting himself through that intense struggle would he compare his version back to the original. By doing this, he deliberately forced his brain to retrieve, reorganize, and refine the information. Modern brain imaging actually confirms that this kind of struggle activates significantly deeper neural pathways than if you were just passively reading an explanation. Which brings us to your actionable smart habit for this section. Before you ask for help or search for that quick shortcut, force yourself to write down your absolute best guess or answer, even if you know it's probably wrong. Embrace that productive struggle before you look up the solution. Next up is habit 3, writing to think or making thought visible. This habit really shifts the focus from how we simply store information to how we actively process it. I mean, most people approach note-taking so passively, writing purely to record. You're just storing facts and collecting data, right? But the most brilliant minds write to think. Writing to think slows the brain down. It forces you to detect gaps in your logic, and it makes those vague, fuzzy ideas incredibly precise. Take Leonardo da Vinci, for instance. His notebooks were definitely not neat, organized essays. They were full of fragments, wild contradictions, random questions, and diagrams. His notebooks were alive. And what I found really fascinating is that modern research from Princeton and UCLA completely backs this up, proving that writing by hand improves conceptual understanding far more than typing or just reading. Why? Because intelligence grows where thoughts are deeply examined, not just collected. So try writing down not just what you did today, but what actually confused you, or what ideas still feel unfinished.
All right, habit 4, building mental models, or understanding systems over facts. To build a truly flexible mind, high IQ individuals don't just hoard trivia, they figure out how entire systems work together. Look at Charlie Munger's famous lattice work of mental models. He'd pull cause and effect from physics, adaptation from biology, human bias from psychology, and incentives from economics. By studying across multiple domains, you aren't just learning isolated trivia, you're creating a vastly smarter, adaptable brain that can connect the dots.
The actual scientific term for this cognitive flexibility is transfer intelligence. It's basically this fluid ability to take an idea you learned over here in one specific domain and apply it to reason your way through an entirely new, novel situation over there. This is exactly how history's great polymaths, like Aristotle, Da Vinci, Goethe, totally dominated their fields. Your smart habit? Every single week, learn one concept conceptually outside your own field. Let those connections spark.
Which brings us to habit 5, deliberate memory training, or building faster reasoning.
Okay, we need to establish right out of the gate that a strong memory is not just some neat party trick. It is a foundational, highly trainable component of high intelligence. Look at this incredible example with Nikola Tesla. He could visualize entire complex machines, rotate them mentally, and literally test them for wear and tear, all entirely within his own mind. Ancient scholars trained their memories deliberately because they understood a very simple truth. A sharper memory directly creates faster reasoning and raw problem-solving power. Because memory is absolutely a trainable skill. In fact, MRI studies confirm that techniques like active recall, spaced repetition, and mental visualization don't just act like a computer hard drive storing data. They physically reorganize your neural networks. They develop denser, far more efficient brain connections. So I challenge you. Try to explain the ideas you learn, teach them to someone else, and do it without looking at your notes. Recall before you review.
And finally, habit 6, cognitive recovery, or protecting cognitive energy.
This final habit is literally going to flip modern hustle culture entirely on its head. We live in this world that totally glorifies the non-stop grind, right? But here is the stark contrast. Hustle culture, with its chronic stress, sleep deprivation, and constant digital stimulation, literally damages your executive function, which is a core component of your IQ. True intelligence looks very, very different. Charles Darwin, for example, worked only 4 to 5 highly focused hours a day. The rest of his time was spent walking, resting, and reflecting. So the absolute crucial point here is that your brain simply does not upgrade during the hustle. True cognitive upgrades actually happen during recovery. You must protect your brain's cognitive energy. How do we do that? Sleep deeply, move your body daily, get natural sunlight, and, perhaps most importantly, allow yourself to experience boredom. Boredom isn't a weakness, folks. It is essential cognitive recovery.
Which leaves us with one final provocative question to consider today. What system will you build today to upgrade your intelligence? Because intelligence is an architecture. The smartest people in history didn't just cross their fingers and chase quick brain hacks. They built intentional daily habits that allowed their intelligence to systematically grow. If you want a stronger mind, you have to start with the habits, not just the raw information. If this explainer changed how you view your own potential, be sure to share it with someone who still thinks IQ is fixed, and subscribe for more deep dives into science-based mental growth. Catch you next time.